The Maple Leafs offseason started out as the most dramatic daytime soap for the entire world to see, but once everything started to calm down, it seemed like, hey, maybe they'll get things on track, maybe they'll make the changes that they need, but reports are starting to come out that makes it seem like Brendan Shanahan and the Maple Leafs might be making a mistake so drastic, it might kill any chance that they have of winning a Stanley Cup within the next few years. What's up, Leafs fans, and welcome back to Leafs Digest. Yes, that was a bit of an dramatic opening there for you, but that is what this has been so far this offseason. Drama here in Toronto, and everyone loves to get a piece of it, whether it is the media, fans around the NHL, or if it is other GMs, coaches, executives. It doesn't matter. Everyone is loving taking note of what the Toronto Maple Leafs are up to and sitting there saying, don't look at us, look at that tire fire over there. And that's exactly what it has been in Toronto so far this offseason. And as we get into it, and as I get into the big mistake that I'm seeing, or the big mistakes, I guess you could say, that I'm seeing so far being made for this Leafs offseason, I just want to remind people, if you are not already subscribed to this channel, please take a moment to do so. About 50% of the people who watch this video or watch this channel are not subscribed here, so make sure to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a video, especially as we lead up to the draft and free agency, whether we're breaking down rumors, trades that happen, injuries, buyouts, all that kind of stuff. It'll all happen here on the Leafs Digest channel, so make sure to subscribe and turn on those notifications. But yes, as I said, there are some massive mistakes being made here in Toronto right now. So let's start with the first one that might be leading to the bigger mistake going on after the fact. You guys can decide for yourselves and let me know in the comments. But first and foremost, the report that the core four are returning. I know that this is a very divided topic amongst Leafs fans, but I personally am adamant that this is the first mistake being made here. And this was reported by Chris Johnson after the Dubas firing. Brendan Shanahan phoned each of the Leafs' top players to share the news about Kyle Dubas. Those players came away from those conversations under the belief that Shanahan's intentions are to bring the entire core four back. Mistake number one. 7 consecutive years of doing the same thing over and over again with these guys and saying, well, it's not their fault, it's the pieces around them. No, these guys don't score in the playoffs. These guys disappear when it matters most. These guys do not have the mentality that it takes to get this team over the hump. That is very clear. Each and every year we've had to rely on support from other guys around them and sit there and say, oh, well, these guys didn't live up to expectations. And then the following argument is, oh, well, we can't pay enough for the other guys to get guys around them to do this and to support them and to score and and take the pressure off them, blah, blah, blah. First of all, if you are getting paid that much money, you should not need other guys around you. You should not need your left winger who's not Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner playing together. You don't need your left winger to be the guy contributing to make you go. You two are paid $11 million. Guess what? You should be the ones getting things going. You should be the ones pushing things along, but they haven't been. Now push down to JT and Willie. Okay, Willie's been probably the best player in the playoffs for the Leafs offensively, and of those 4 over the past few years. But that being said, JT hasn't been the absolute best that he could probably be, especially considering the money that he's making. Yes, there are other areas that they contribute. Defensively, that's great. Draws, that's great. Penalty kills, sure, that's great. But you are paid $11 million to score goals and to provide offense, and that has mostly disappeared. And then if you're going to sit there and say, well, it's because we can't get the right guys around them, well, ask yourselves, maybe is the reason that we can't get the right guys around them because those guys are sucking up all the money? Is that a possibility here? Because the more and more we look at it, it looks like it might be. Mitch Marner being paid $11 million might actually be pretty detrimental to the spreading of money around the remainder of the team. Maybe you could spend $1 million here, $1 million there, because he's probably about $2 million overpaid at the time that he signed that previous contract. Maybe now $11 million is fair value for what he is, but when he signed that contract, it sure was not. And if you sit there and say, well, it makes sense that he's doing this now, well, William Nylander signed at 6.9. He's underpaid considering what he does right now. So Don't give me that argument. I don't really want to hear it right now. That's kind of the first issue. Going into this offseason, I sat here and I said, one of these four needs to go. There needs to be a change because you need to bring in somebody or something or multiple guys with some type of different mentality here. You got to change that mold. And maybe it's just not four guys who get it done. Maybe it's three. Very clearly here, they will not be moving on from the four. That is not their intention, and it looks like Brendan Shanahan wants to keep these four here together. So that is the first mistake, in my opinion. I looked at this and I said, you know what? I didn't really like Keefe. That being said, if you just fire the coach, you kind of gave away these guys. You give it to these guys and say, hey, there's your excuse. It wasn't your fault. It was Sheldon Keefe's, and now you're on to your third coach during the time that you've been here. That would have been a mistake to me as well. Okay, so you're going to keep these guys here. Well, then obviously you're going to get rid of Sheldon Keefe, right? No, clearly not. So, mistake number 2 here. Sheldon Keefe will be returning. Now, I don't know how much Kyle Dubas had to do with the lineups that went out on a nightly basis. By his end of season press conference, it seemed like he had his hand in the pot and he had some type of say on what went on a 82-game schedule and then into the playoffs. And if that's true, then maybe we get to see some different lineups going out or different guys going in and out of the lineup. Who knows? That being said, Sheldon Keefe's on-ice deployment and strategy and decision-making was not up to par. Sheldon Keefe consistently got out-coached by coaches who were considered good coaches around the NHL. In that series against Tampa Bay, he was drastically outclassed by John Cooper. That was a bad sign. His team had to outplay his coaching. His team had to overcome his own coaching in the first round of the playoffs. And even that being said, that series more so felt like Tampa lost it than it did Toronto won it, because in a lot of those games, Toronto probably didn't deserve to win. And yes, that happens in the playoffs. It's the way that it goes. But that being said, if a couple bounces don't go your way, you're sitting here saying, wow, another first-round loss. Sheldon Keefe fails us again. So I kind of sat here and said bench management mid-game, during the game, probably wasn't up to par. Okay, maybe Kyle Dubas had his hand in the pot in the lineup. Maybe things look a little bit differently. Maybe Kyle Dubas had his situation to sit here and say, oh, okay, we got to run things this way, or this is how I want things deployed. I don't know. We don't exactly know what the situation was that was going on between Keefe and Dubas, but Dubas did lean towards the fact that he was somewhat involved in the lineup decisions on a nightly basis. But basically what we're getting to here is the first report by Darren Dreger saying Brad Treliving and Sheldon Keefe are well into interviewing candidates to replace Spencer Carberry. Treliving and Keefe spent time getting to know one another as soon as Treliving was hired as GM. No extension for Keefe yet, but those discussions are expected to happen this summer. So this was from a couple of days ago. And with this being said, I want to clarify a couple of things. If you fired Keefe and didn't get rid of any of the core four, you're basically giving them a pass, which I didn't like. I did not like the idea of giving them a pass because they're the ones ultimately who just kind of wither away and don't give you what you need at the most important time of the year. So you're just saying, hey, don't worry about it, boys. This was Sheldon Keefe's fault. When in reality, it's not. Maybe it's a little bit of Keefe's fault. Maybe it's a little bit of the rest of the lineup. But then a lot of this comes down to the core four because they're the ones paid to perform. And they didn't get it done again and again and again and again. So I thought the pressure should have been on them. That being said, where I went to next was I said, okay, you're not going to get rid of the four. Obviously, you're going to get rid of Keefe, right? Because they can use a different voice. You need some type of different energy or different atmosphere in there, into that room to give a different message, to portray something, to maybe get a little bit more out of each of the guys. And then we see this report. And the longer this goes on, the longer it felt like it wasn't going to happen. He wasn't going to get fired. That report was from a couple of days ago. And then yesterday morning, this comes out. Darren Dreger on First Up on TSN says, Sheldon Keefe and Brad Treliving spent some time together and got to know each other. Treliving feels confident that Keefe is the right coach for the Maple Leafs. Very likely scenario is that Keefe will receive an extension this summer. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The core four are staying. Sheldon Keefe is staying. I cannot stress enough how ridiculous of a decision both of these are. If Keefe is staying, one of the four should not be coming back. If the four are staying, Sheldon Keefe should not be coming back. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. In what world are we not doing things differently here in Toronto? You're going to bring back the same guys. You're going to keep the same coach. You're going to run the same systems. You're going to run the same lineups, same lineup deployments, the same strategy, everything. Everything's going to stay the same. Those four are going to go out there and they're just going to go stoic and missing in the playoffs again. And then you're going to sit here and say, well, we had a great regular season. It was fun. Let's run it back next year. Guys, we're getting to the end of contracts here for some of these guys. At some point, you got to sit down, see if you've got any type of opportunity to make your team better. Vegas sat there and they said, hey, we got to make our team better. They went out and got Mark Stone. They got Pietrangelo. They got Jack Eichel. They're hoisting the Stanley Cup above their head. Look at Washington. They made minute changes along the way. They won once, and now they are rebuilding. Yes, you want to win the Stanley Cup, but you want to be competitive for a longer period of time and have opportunities to win it. Vegas will have that opportunity to run it back. Look at Pittsburgh. They won 3 with those guys. And I know a lot of people sit here and say, well, look at Washington. They kept it together. They kept it together. They kept it together to a degree. And they won the one. But you know what? Who else kept it together? The San Jose Sharks. And you know how many Stanley Cups the San Jose Sharks won? 0. 0 Stanley Cups. And now the San Jose Sharks are rebuilding. Their pieces are all gone everywhere. They're rebuilding for another at least couple of years. They're not getting first overall picks. It is a mess in San Jose. And yeah, they had great players there. And yeah, they had opportunities to win. But guess what? They didn't win. And that is the reality of the situation. We're not here for regular season success. We're looking for Stanley Cups. That's what this is all about. That's the name of the game. One team hoists the Stanley Cup every year, and your goal is to be that team. Without making these moves, without moving on from one of the four, without moving on from Sheldon Keefe, we're just doing the same thing over and over and over again. And if Leafs fans go into this next season and expect any type of different result without any type of change here, insanity. Truthfully, at this point in time, watching what has gone on, watching how this is unfolding, the expectations for next season at this point is good regular season, out by round 2, if lucky. So, I'm interested to hear your thoughts, guys. I want to know what you think about the idea of bringing back all 4, the idea of bringing back Sheldon Keefe, and not only bringing him back, but actually extending him and giving him a contract extension going into next season. I want to hear it in the comments below. And again, a reminder, if you have not subscribed here to the Leafs Digest channel, please make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so that you get notified every time new videos drop or that we go live on this channel. It does help us get out there and find new people, and about 50% of you aren't subscribed here, so please make sure to do so. But Leafs fans, I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Is this an overreaction? Are you on the same page? How do you feel about going into the next season with these guys all coming back? I want to hear it all. Thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate your support. Keep believing.